Welcome and good morning. It's time to call to order the April 27, 2023 meeting of the Oklahoma City Airport Trust. With that, our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the March 23, 2023 Oklahoma City Airport Trust meeting. Is there a motion and a second? And the item passes. Next up, we have the director's report.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple slides, so I have it up, Amy, if you want to try to see if it shows up on the screen there. There we go. So a couple of things I wanted to bring the board members up to date on. First of all, so our March 2023 passenger numbers were a record for the month for the airport. The numbers I've got there are from 2022 and 2019, which was the previous high. So you can see that we're at 391,000 passengers, which is great performance. That's even with less flights than we had in 2019. So it means that full airplanes and then also wanted to mention in the last 2 months, between myself and Stacy from our staff, we've had a number of visits that we made to airlines, kind of listed those there on the list. And just updates that we provided to the various airlines about the market, how it's going, and then feedback from the various air carriers themselves. And the feedback was positive. They are still plagued by some of their own challenges as far as workforce, and they're still waiting on some aircraft deliveries. So the message they gave back to us was that any additions they do over the next year will be somewhat limited due to lack of pilots and new airplanes. But we anticipate this summer being which is typically, of course, our peak month, June and July. We will have additional seats compared to where we're at right now, but it's still going to be a challenge for the airlines for the next couple of years as they try to catch up. Another thing I wanted to highlight to you on is customer surveys. So we've begun our customer survey program. We acquired this platform. It's a software platform that is used by a number of different airports around the country. And we have our interns involved in this, where they go out into the airport and they survey passengers, and it's via an iPad. So you hand the passenger an iPad and they go through and answer a series of questions. And our intention is to just get feedback on how the customers are, how we're doing as far as the services and the facilities. And so that's the number of surveys we're required to take. We started in April and it's underway now. So obviously we'll see how things go. And then after June, we'll have kind of our first quarter of surveys. In front of you, one of the things that you do have is the quarterly or the monthly financials for March. And I wanted to highlight two things on there that have kind of made a dramatic difference this year in our activity on the revenue side. Under non-operating revenues, there's two line items there: year-to-date actuals. Under gain and loss of investments, $4.2 million, and oil and gas revenues, $4.2 million. Those two things stand out as far as our revenue side this year, and will ultimately provide a large revenue bump for us for this fiscal year. Some investments that were made have certainly produced some great returns, and then we had some new oil wells that began, plus the price of oil that we're seeing has produced some good revenue bumps for us. But we didn't plan on those things for this fiscal year, and those came into place, and so that's dramatically improved the financial situation for us for this year. So I wanted to just give you some updates too on projects. So there's some various things that we've been working on that you guys have been approving. And a couple of them are from Mike Monroney. One of them is the North Parking Lot project. And then the Cooling Tower Registry is another project that's currently underway, and multi-elevator replacement. So staff had sent me some photos of some of these projects just to kind of show where things are at. And they're underway or nearing completion and are important projects for Mike Monroney. The lower left is a carpet replacement project. So this started again yesterday. We have replaced all of our carpet in the terminal a couple months ago, and it was defective. It started turning up at the corners, and so the manufacturer is replacing it all again. So we're getting new carpet again, and they said this time, I don't understand, I guess when you weave carpet, sometimes there was some problem with the process, and so they're replacing everything again. But the other picture there is the ongoing work on replacing the roof on our West Concourse, and that continues and is going fairly well. And then up there at upper left is the finished product. We hadn't opened the whole lot yet, but this was from a couple weeks ago where we've resurfaced the parking lot there north of the parking garage. And then to the right is runway 1331. That shows, so that's underway now. You can see a couple lanes have been paved of that portion of the runway. And then on the lower is some of the overhead signs that have been put in place. So the major signs are in place. We still have a number of smaller ones that are going into place, but those are some of the major projects currently underway. I think I'm done, Amy, with those slides. Mr. Chairman, I also wanted to spend just a minute and talk about our proposed budget for next year. And the intention today is just to introduce it, and then we would have you guys consider it for approval at next month. So some highlights from the packet. On the third page is a draft letter that is to the Airport Trust, and some of the numbers I wanted to highlight in there. So the story is a pretty dramatic increase in the budget compared to this year, and in that being the capital increase. So the capital budget's increasing by almost $40 million, and with a total increase of about $47 million. And a lot of that has to do with some projects that we are going to be undertaking this year. One of them is a new aircraft hangar for AAR. It's not being funded by the trust, but it's being funded combination of AAR and the state of Oklahoma. But it's going to be our project to construct, so it's in our budget. We also have the opportunity, as many airports do, of additional funding that we have available from the FAA. And so we have several projects that we anticipate this year that normally we wouldn't have. One of them is replacing 6 of our boarding bridges, and that's a project that we typically wouldn't be undertaking. But that, I think, toward the end of the budget, we have a list of various projects. I think that's about $9 million of work. So,
But no voting.
and we're seeing on the revenue side, besides just those additional revenue sources for capital, we continue to expect to see increases in parking as we have passengers continue to come back. Landing fees for the airlines. We had a slight increase in landing fees, but we also have more heavier aircraft, larger aircraft that are being used, and that increases some of the landed weight. On page 3, there's a list of the various revenues that we have anticipating for this next fiscal year. Concessions is another one. That's about the 4th line down. We expect that's going to be increasing, benefiting from some of the new restaurants and shops that we have in the terminal. That's driving additional revenue for us. And then the next line down to $12 million, that's really the contribution from AAR for the hangar development. We expect oil and gas will continue to provide some good revenue. And then at the bottom there, the $33 million on the revenue side, that's essentially the additional funding that is available through some of our FA grants. And then the next page on 4, on the expense side, we have an increase of about $5 million on the operating side. About $2.5 million of that is really for services. And we are seeing some pretty healthy increases in our service contracts, not surprisingly. One of them is our janitorial agreement that started in March. That cost has gone up, but that really was anticipated. We were trying to find and improve the performance of that activity, and we've seen that performance improve, but we're paying more for it, which is okay. In addition to some of that cost increase, we expect next fiscal year would be commodities and supplies. Of course, the cost of everything is going up quite a bit. Also, higher wages, that's about $1.9 million of that, and there was a significant cost of living increase over the last fiscal year, as you guys know, and we expect we'll have some more increases this next fiscal year. I'll say from the airport perspective, that's been a positive. It's helped us some with the recruiting and retaining positions, and so we expect that will be an increased cost for us in this next year. Page 5 and 6 just are some charts that show you how the revenues and the expenses break down. And then on the last 2 pages are a list of the projects that comprise the capital program. $71 million for the airports and about $31 million for Mike Monroney. And some of the larger ones that are listed there, about 4 or 5 rows down is a project to widen runways 17 right at Wiley Post Airport. That's almost $9 million. About the middle of the page is the one that I mentioned before, the passenger boarding bridge replacement. That's about $9.6 million. And then about 2/3 of the way down, our New Bay hangar, it's at $22 million. The total cost for that's going to probably be $40 million, but we expect we'll expend about $22 million in the next fiscal year. So you can see with some of those big numbers, that's kind of driving the budget. And then there's a large number of projects, again, at Mike Monroney of smaller scale, but they certainly add up to a significant number. So that's kind of the high-level look at it, but wanted to at least go over that in a little bit of detail before it comes back in front of you guys next week.
Would you like a vote to receive or just?
Looks like that's what's up next. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we have a item up to receive the proposed budget. Is there a motion and second? And the item passes. Next up, we have Will Rogers.
Mr. Chairman, so item A is final acceptance of demolition of hotel building. Item B is amendment for runway 1331, increase of $38,708.55 in 14 calendar days. Item C is amend a professional service agreement with Benham for terminal building roof repairs, an increase of $130,500. Amendment 4 is amendment for the elevator replacement for multiple buildings at Mike Monroney Center. Item E is terminal building upper level duct structural repairs. That's amendment 4, a decrease of $9,000, and change order 16, a decrease of $26,384.04. Item F is a change order number 1 with South Campus paving and repairs at Mike Monroney. Item G is change order 2, landside wayfinding, increase of $39,979.44. Item H, change order 3 with First Water contracting parking lot pavement 2 rehab, increase of $19,080.74. Item I is plans and project manual for approval for headquarters building envelope repairs at Mike Monroney. Item J is plans and project manual approval for old ARF building roof replacement. Item K is plans and project approval for passenger boarding bid replacement phase 1. Item L is resolution authorizing professional services for design of Hangar 9 chiller cooling tower and air handling unit replacement. Item M is approval for professional services to design ANF1 chiller and cooling tower replacement at Mike Monroney. Item N is resolution rescinding custodial services bond approved at February 23 meeting. Item O is performance bond for R2 Consulting Services, custodial services at Fuel Farm Snow Barn and Maintenance Facility. Item P is resolution authorizing the purchase of a bulldozer at $429,500. Item Q is Amendment 3 to service agreement with Upward Transitions. Item R is ground service agreement with Minel DBA. Item S is ground service agreement with Hampton Inn. T is ground services agreement with Wichita and affiliated tribes. Item U is ground service agreement with PLD Hospitality. Item V is ground service agreement with Aramark Services. Item W is ground services agreement with Oklahoma Embassy Suites. Item X is ground services agreement with 9 Hotel Hilton Garden Inn.
You've heard the request for approval for Will Rogers World Airport. Is there a motion and a second? And the item passes. Next up is item 5, Wiley Post Airport.
Mr. Chairman, item A is an assignment and assumption PWA Hangar Unit 1403. Item B is an assumption agreement. Assignment is Unit 1309. Item C is assumption agreement for Unit 408. And item D is supplement number 6 to hangar office lease agreement with Cooper Family Management.
Okay. You've heard the request for approval for item 5. Is there a motion and a second? And the item passes. Next up is item 6, Clarence C. Page Airport.
Item A is a joint resolution for the grant application with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission for the 12,000-gallon self-service avgas system.
You've heard the request for approval. Is there a motion and second? And the item passes. Next up, we have general.
Item A is Amendment 1 with, for the annual maintenance contract with Rudy Construction. Item B is Amendment 1 to annual maintenance contract with Southeast Plumbing and Backhoe.
Okay. You've heard the request for approval. Is there a motion and second? This one's circling.
Didn't like that.
Yes.
Move it again.
And the item passes. Next up, we have easements.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, item A is an easement for 3200 Melcat Drive. Item B is an easement at 5325 Southwest 36th Street. Item C is an easement 4000 Southwest 149th Street. Item D is an easement 7320 Northwest Expressway. Item E is an easement 5000 Southwest 29th Street. And item F is permanent water easement, Oklahoma City for fire hydrant system.
Okay. You heard the request for approval. Is there a motion and second? And the item passes. Next up is item 9, requisitions. It's a resolution rectifying the actions of the Director of Airports and approving requisitions previously paid. And B, the resolution approving requisitions dated April 27th, 2023. Is there a motion and second? Okay, we'll try this again. All right, and the item passes. Are there any comments from trustees? Okay. Are there any comments from staff? Are there any citizens to be heard? If not, we are adjourned.